A bunch of people have been literally stalking me online all day, just waiting for me to go online. Literally, I don't know how they even access my computer. I'm doing it remotely. I don't even know how they learn those skills. But that's what happened. And what ended up happening was that I didn't know this, but they're actually going through PTSD. Some of them have personality disorders, and I didn't know it was possible, but some of them have schizophrenia and a personality disorder. I was like, yo, that's not good. Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna be treating them for it because, from what somebody had tried to tell me, he'd already told me, even if you treat them, their symptoms are so severe that it's just recurrent. And I'm like, that's crazy. And he's like, yeah. And then I was like, why am I living in this income bracket? Like, why do I have to live like this? And I think, like, a lot of people are being questioned about that because they're like, it makes no sense that she has to live like that. And I didn't know it was because it was all Europeans and they were all whores and prostitutes that were working in the lower income. So weird. And they like slaves and prostitutes, or whores if they're not really doing it for sexual favors or sex, just material wealth or some sort of like gain, but like such as money or something. And then they're like trying to say that they've been calling me money. Literally, I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about, but they like, when they talk about me, these are people that I've never met, never worked with, have nothing to do with currently, by the way. Those are the people who are saying those things. And I'm like, what? It's called bullying, right? I didn't know it was actually because they're just very poor. And I'm like, and like, honestly, like, I get that, like, the whole American dream stuff, where people are like, yeah, you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, like, you can, like, you know, just, like, work really hard, and you can just change who you are as a person. You know, like, as long as you work hard, show up to work every day, and, like, you save up enough money, that's wealth, man. Like, you have no idea. Like, you'll make so many friends, and you'll meet so many people, and, like, that's wealth. And I'm like, I'm like, what? You actually believe that shit? But yeah, no, I'm not talking about, like, wealth disparity, I mean. There is wealth disparity. But, like, the point is, like, there's some, like, weirdo. There's been 3 cars so far stalking me. There's a truck that's just parked right there, and they're all white, and they're all trailer trash. And they think I'm the problem. Because I just figured out this woman was trying to say, like, there's no way anyone that I know or me can be the problem because I'm such a perfect goody two-shoes and I'm good at everything. And I'm just a perfect angel of a human being. Like, I've never done anything wrong in my life, and even if I did, it's not reflective of who I am. Right? That's what they're saying. And I'm like, what? So they're saying everything they did, they were either forced to do that, or everything that they chose to do was just such a good choice. And I'm like, that's pretty insane. That's literally insane. To me, I'm just like, and I didn't know this, but people sell their values for material wealth all the time. It's called selling your soul. So, like, let's say a person who screws over people repeatedly, you know, just the people that they should be trusting, and depending on now they don't have that relationship, right? Those people are the ones who sell their souls for money. So they're like, I don't really care about anybody else in the world. All I care about is the fact that I have a house and food to eat for myself. No one else matters. That's called selling your soul for money, and so many people have done that here. Because they didn't want to live in squalor or in poverty in a different area. That's fucking weird. But yeah, that's what they were doing. But the thing that didn't make sense, and I just figured out like this is why people were doing this, was because they're saying literally like you're assuming everybody who comes as an immigrant is exactly like, you know, those really dirty poor hobos who have no family or their family's incredibly poor because there's something wrong with them and they can't find proper work or they just can't maintain enough social relationships and they end up taking advantage of everyone around them, which is why they just have to stay at that level, right? Anytime they try to get up in society or like climb the social ladder, they end up, you know, fucking things up. And I'm like, that's kind of like, I don't think that's right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's true. And then I met some people, I didn't think that was true, sorry. And then I met some people who were like that. Dude, I don't know these guys. These guys are doing this out of work, right? And they're hoping that if I see them enough, I'll recognize them one day. And then if they ever ask me for help, then I'll just help them. Because I still have to live there. Like, that was their plan, the Europeans' plans from the beginning, where they're like, we still govern here, and we have people that live here, and if you ever need any help, you have to help us. And I'm like, I don't have to because of what you're doing. Literally, like, you're stealing from me, you're insulting me, and you're happy when I live worse than you, right? And then now you're telling me that since none of your extremely stupid and illegal plans have worked to continue to steal from me and keep all my property that's legally mine, right? You decided to just like throw away everything, and then now it's my responsibility to make sure you're okay because I'm your mom, right? This is what I mean by schizophrenia. And also, I was shocked to find out that they thought it was working. Like, literally, they thought that like all that stuff that they were saying was working regardless of my response because they got to do it. Does that make sense? Like, they'd come, like, some weirdos, some random guys would come up to me and they'd be like, hey, you want to go on a date with me? Hey, sexy, haha. And then they'll go and tell their friends, yeah, she likes me. Like, I talked to her and she said that, like, she wasn't, like, I mean, and then they make up some story about how I never texted them back or they got my number, but whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, you saw me talk to her, right? Yeah, she really likes me. She even said that. And I was like, what? Literally, this is what they think, because like I think they might be going through psychosis. They would come up to me and yell obscenities at me, right? But to their head, like in their mind, they're not actually yelling obscenities at me. They're saying hello. And I'm like, that's not saying hello, that's you yelling obscenities at me. And they didn't understand this. And then when I was like telling them off because that's harassment, they thought that I was being a bitch because they're like, why are you being rude to me even if I'm just saying hello? And I'm like, you literally call me an ugly bitch and I should suck your dick for free even though you could pay me because you're such a stupid ugly bitch. And I'm like, how is any of that in any meaning, in any context, going to be appropriate? And they're like, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. You can't just say that. And I'm like, that's literally what you said and that's literally what you meant. Like, why are you saying those things and telling me that it's okay for you to say that? And then, not only that, getting upset that I don't respond to you the way you want me to respond because nobody on the entire planet is gonna respond to you normally. Literally, like, I have no idea why they would even bother doing this. I'm not sure if a group of people are getting involved in doing this intentionally to convince me that there's something wrong with me intrinsically, to get me to internalize these social responses, instead of admitting that I'm actually better than them, right? And they're like, there's no way that you are ever gonna get responses that are normal because there's something wrong with you and you just don't know it. And I'm like, are you mentally ill? Because that's seriously something a mentally ill person would say. And I think it's a little odd that everybody that I've encountered is mentally ill here. I don't know if that's a sign that, like, this country has degraded to that point, or if it was always like this. Like, was it always the case that people were just severely mentally ill or chronically in poverty and they just, you know, decided to get these people to work somehow to get some money out of them? I have no idea. I'm like, okay, there's literally no reason for you to have done that or said that to me and for you to expect something out of it when it's clearly just something. I mean, I don't know why you would even say that. That kind of thing. Like, I wouldn't go up to a store clerk and say, like, fuck you, pay me everything in the cash register, and then expect that person not to call the police. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why are you saying those things, and then now you're upset at me because I just refuse to call the police? Or anything? Like, why would I bother calling the police about something so stupid? Literally, I'm gonna call the police because some idiot is walking around being mentally ill. That's the reason to call the police, right? That's just weird. And I'm like, how is it my fault that, like, you're the one yelling obscenities at me even though I didn't do anything? Like, me sitting here isn't an invitation for you to gawk at me and try to come on to me or demand sex from me. That's weird. Like, that's definitely not a reason for anyone to do that. And then they expect me to do that for them because they're entitled to having sex with me because they want to. These are the poor whores that I'm talking about. Because that's where the income bracket they are. Because they don't make that much money. And most of them, they're living off their life savings or their inheritance money or living off their relatives. So they're literally not doing anything. And not only that, there's something wrong with them and they're just absolute garbage people. I don't know why they even bother housing them here. But that's where they're living and that's where the poor people live. And I'm like, yeah, no, I get that. But it's like you're assessing a person's value by the amount of material wealth they have or the amount of people that they know. Right? And that's actually narcissistic. That's narcissistic personality disorder in a nutshell. Right? It's just, you can't assess a person by anything else than who they are as a person, such as personality traits or preferences. Or you can even assess them by their physical appearance and their health. That's enough of an indicator for most people to be like, fuck this shit, I'm not gonna go near that because that person is unhealthy. I don't want to get sick somehow. Right? That's enough for people to stay away from that person. I didn't know that a bunch of people were doing this because they were planning on harassing everyone around me out of there, not knowing that the only people who think that they're scary or that they can harass out of there is them. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, if there's like a fly buzzing around me and like, it's like, blah, 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 and I was like, wow, it's so annoying, swat it away or kill it or something. Literally. I don't understand why they are doing this because it's just insane. But I didn't know it was because they're just whores. This is just what slaves and whores are like. And I'm like, why do I have to live amongst them? Because they don't work for me. Literally, and also retarded people. So severely disabled, chronically ill, terminally ill, and prostitutes and slaves. And I'm like, why do I have to do anything with these people if I know every time I do something, they're just gonna try to steal from me? Literally, like, they intentionally target people who are better than them because they think if they do that, then everyone else around them can stay the same, and that person who's better than them can find a different job and will just follow them there. And then afterwards, we'll just steal from that person again. And I'm like, yeah, that's called a crime. That's called harassment. And extortion and theft. And robbery. Like, that's what criminals do. But the thing is, they're not actually criminals. They're just the garbage. Do you know what I mean? It's like they do criminal activity, but it's not really criminal. Because they're not criminals. They're not doing it for like a sort of goal or an end game here. They're doing that to pass the time and because they think that they're entitled to those things, which is a mental illness. So, I have no idea why they're doing that or saying those things. It's just weird. And I thought it got better at higher income levels. Turns out it actually doesn't. I thought it would mean something. Most of the time, it doesn't mean that much. Which is why a lot of people don't value material wealth that much. I mean, you shouldn't really. It'll make you happy for a period of time until you need a new material thing. Right? I mean, nothing really gives you the contentness and pleasure of being at one with yourself. And also being a part of contributing to global economy. Basically, being an important person. Like, you matter, your existence matters. It makes a difference that you are alive. Versus all these people who are following me, leeching off me, it would be better if they were dead. And I understand that kind of frustration and resentment built up, especially when they see me, and I'm demographically speaking in the same spot as they are, and they could have done something different and they didn't. And things are still not working out for me, which means that they're the problem, right? And people don't like to admit that they're the problem. If they're the problem, I've noticed. Like, every time they do something wrong and they're the reason why things are the way it is, they don't want to admit that. They want to be like, it's not because of me, it's because of somebody else. That's, like, to me, I'm just like, I don't know, it's like, there's no way that this guy's dying on the ground because I accidentally stabbed him. And I'm like, what do you mean you accidentally stabbed this guy and now he's dead? Like, that, you don't accidentally stab somebody. And then, like, they make all these weird excuses as to, like, I didn't mean to stab that person, or, like, I just didn't know that person was going to die. And, like, their reasons are, like, I just got spooked. Like, I saw, like, a bird in the corner of my eye, and I thought it was some stranger who was trying to attack me, so I was going to stab that guy. So I did, and then now he's dead, and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, are you being serious right now? Like, are you seriously saying this? Like, you're seriously telling me you have no idea what happened, and all of a sudden all of this stuff is happening. Like, that literally makes no sense. I just don't understand what they're talking about at any given moment. Literally, like, I had to go through all this fucking bullshit just for them to say this thing, which is, I am sorry that I accidentally hurt you, even though my intention from the beginning was to hurt you. I just didn't know it would affect me this much. That's the most incredibly selfish thing I've ever heard of. Right? Like, I've never heard of anyone say anything more selfish and more self-absorbed in my entire life. But yeah, those are criminals. In every country, every criminal is like that. They're incredibly selfish, self-absorbed, and their intention always is to hurt other people, and they don't care how it's affecting them or other people. Why? I don't know why. Legitimately, I actually don't know why they're like this, but their goal is always, like, to prove their insane point, which is, I feel threatened even though there's no reason for me to feel threatened, but I'm going to do something about my feelings, which is hurting other people. Because it's not my responsibility to manage my own feelings, but it's somebody else's responsibility to manage my feelings and the way that I go about doing things. And it's just, to me, I'm just like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. Literally, like, it makes zero sense. Like, you're telling me it's somebody else's job to make sure that you're a functional, independent human being after a certain age. I understand if there was actual problems during your upbringing or you didn't have access to certain resources. People know that, and they do things for you to supplement that. Whether or not you're aware of this, okay? There's no way you're living in a place filled with other people who can't tell that you are actually missing an important aspect of something, or they need you to, like, you know what I mean? It's like, I've never, and this isn't something that you should be expecting per se. I'm not saying that you're entitled for people to do that to you all the time. All I'm really saying is, if somebody can see that you have been neglected or abused or have problems with relationships, and this person is a sane, functioning member of society, we're disregarding the non-functioning members of society, or otherwise some people call them vulnerable populations, right? The vulnerable populations being criminals, or the underagers, or people with no legal status. Those are vulnerable people of society. Okay, they're vulnerable to be victims of crime with no compensation, and they're liable for their own existence, right? Like refugees, like, nobody's really obligated to look after those people, right? Like no one, they're not really a citizen per se. Like that's what I'm trying to say is like, okay, you are like telling me that your entire life nobody has noticed that you needed something, and they could have just handed it to you, and that's what they did. Literally, like, I've never met a single person who was like this in my entire life. Even the worst of the criminals will be able to supplement something for you. That's the thing. I mean, some people who are severely mentally ill or severely deranged or otherwise just incapable, as in the vulnerable population, won't do anything for you. But if they're sane and they're functioning member of society, which means they have a job, or they have friends, or they have a bank account, or like they're living or in contact with their family members, they're still functioning members of society, right? They're still somewhat functional. People who are criminals or like felons, convicts, typically not really. Some of them are, most of them aren't. What else? Prostitutes, like, technically a criminal. Anything else that encompasses that vulnerable population, like the mentally ill and the disabled and the whores and whatnot, they're not. You can't really rely on them for anything. If that is something that makes sense. Like, anyway, if you are a person and people can see that you need a coat or a pair of shoes or something, and nobody is actually providing that for you, given that you're a citizen and you haven't done anything wrong and you don't have a bad reputation, as in you actually haven't done anything wrong or illegal, right? If that's the case, that means there's something wrong with that country that you're living in. That's literally what that means. If you are living, like, currently, right now, my situation, that means there's actually nobody who lives here. I think that's what they meant. The people who are saying that. It's not that nobody lives here, but there's literally nobody who's actually a legitimate citizen of America here. They don't care about other people, they have no value, and they don't care about other people who live there. They have no idea what that means to be a part of a community, or part of society, or have a relationship just in general. They're there to fill space. And the reason why they're filling space is so that they can either make more money or be a placeholder for people who need that space possibly later on. Like, does that make sense? Like, let's say I have a house that I'm renting out, and I'm only putting people in there that I'm actively trying to help and I plan on keeping in contact with, right? Like, I want people to be housed and I want to help them find their own house. As a landlord, like, my renters, I want all my renters, my turnover rate, it's gonna be like 90% of my renters have found housing after renting from me. That's what my goal is as a landlord, right? So it's like, if I have a space that I'm renting and I don't find anyone, just to have it listed as a rental unit, I need to have occupancy in that rental unit, and just so that other people don't occupy the other rental unit, I need somebody to stay in there, right? So, like, maybe I'll ask some people that I know to say that, can you rent my unit? Or, I don't know, put some stuff in there to make it look like someone's renting it or something. And then when I actually find somebody that I want to invest my time in and I want to make sure that they're doing okay, I'll put them in that rental unit and then try to help them out that way. At least at the end of the day, they don't have to worry about anywhere to sleep at night, so they can go out and find a job and move on that way. And then I'll look after, like, their whole area. Like, that's how I'm doing my rental units. That's what that means, okay? So if that person is not doing that for you for whatever reason, it means it's not governing. It's like you're surrounded by thieves. That's what that means. None of these people are supposed to be there. I have no idea how they got there. That means anyone who actually had some sort of authority has left already. That's what that means. They're there literally just as a placeholder to make it look like people live there. They don't actually live there. They don't know anyone there, and they don't have that much money. But they're there as a placeholder for people to make it look like there's an occupancy in that area. So for either one or two reasons, I think maybe the governing country doesn't want to admit that everyone has left. and the economy has failed. So they don't want to say that we're not actually making enough money to support all our citizens, or that we fucked up entirely and there's no way for us to actually function as a governing body anymore. That's what that means. Okay? I know, like, just forget about the legal system. Look, the agreement is this. They wouldn't have gone into a consensual agreement with you if this wasn't the case. You can disregard this if it wasn't a consensual agreement. So I am consensually agreeing to sign this out of all these units, and even if I wasn't, I'm still agreeing to rent this from you as a landlord to tenant. I'm renting this to you, and you don't have to worry about a place to stay as long as you're paying your rent. That's the agreement, right? And if that agreement is being broken by your landlord, that means that person's not really a landlord. They're trying to house people there to make it look like they have rental units and they have a business going and they're making money. They're trying to scam other people for whatever reason. I don't know why they would want to do that, but they're trying to scam people by trying to insinuate that you shouldn't want to rent here even though you need a place to stay. It's your fault that bad things are happening, not anyone else's. That's typically what propaganda is called, but it could be targeted harassment or bullying. I think that's what most people call it. It's bullying and target harassment. Typically, those things are done by people of the very lower income levels. People who live there, like in their shitty apartments and everything, are living off their family usually. Yeah, this is where my situation comes in, where I actually don't live with my family. And everything I did was outside of my own direct control. I didn't have a consenting say to any of this, despite the fact that I still hold legal status and title here. And I am still legally covered by the governing body here, and I just don't understand how this is something that they can't understand. Like, regardless of what is going on, for you to take advantage of somebody in that situation means that you don't have any money, they're in debt. That's what that means. A person is in a lot of debt. And that's a bad sign if that person is supposed to be in an authority position. It's fine if you're in a lot of debt in a personal life. Like, you don't actually have a job, but you're in so much debt. Or, like, you're in debt, but you're trying to get out of it by getting employed. Because your employer sees some hope in you. Yeah, they see some potential in you. They think you can be great. They think you can turn your life around. You'll be someone completely new. That's what they're saying. We see some potential in you, and we're gonna change you for the better. Literally, that's what they're saying. And you know what? I already know everything's already failed here. Their plan was to try to convert me into a prostitute through force and threats and extortion and coercion. Literally everyone, they're like, if you're a prostitute, if you start doing sex work and end up in prison, we can all get clean. Just forget about yourself and kill yourself, and we'll be clean. That way we can say that this is literally psychosis, by the way. That way we can say that we weren't actually wrong about her. We knew she was some fucked up person. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we knew there was something wrong with her. Look what she's doing. That's typically what a lot of people in prison say. People who end up in prison say that about their victims all the time. And even if you ask them what happened, they always say something along the lines of, you know what, it wasn't actually my fault, but I got blamed for something that I didn't actually do. But, like, this is something that they genuinely believe. This is the fucked up part with the criminals. They genuinely believe that they're not at fault. They believe it's always somebody else's fault, or they were duped into it when they were legally and willingly consenting to it, and they just didn't like the outcome of it. They just wanted something else to happen. So because they don't like the outcome, that's when they start blaming it on other people, saying it's not my fault, it's their fault. They believe this, like, adamantly believe this. But like I said, the problem was that, like, I'm not actually fitting into any of those stereotypical categories because I didn't do any of those things. When somebody says, did you do this, it means, like, did you willingly and you thought it out and you wanted to do that? Not you were being forced to do this. If you're being forced to do it, then you're not actually doing that thing. That's called you being a victim of crime. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. If you're a victim of crime, it's a good thing. If you are the perpetrator of crime, that's a bad thing. That's the bad guy, you're the good guy. You know, bad guy being I'm the one doing the crime activities and forcing people to go along with me or go along with it, and good guys being I'm actually the recipient of said criminal activity. That's where the whole good cop bad cop comes in, when they say it on TV, trying to tell people about, I don't know, because they can't read here because they're prostitutes. Prostitutes can't read, homosexuals can't read. This is why there's like a whole stigma with homosexuals, where they think every homosexual is a prostitute, and every homosexual, it's stereotype homosexual, like pedophile, homosexual, prostitute, the trifecta. Yeah, that's the stereotype. Not only are you a homosexual, but you're also a pedophile, and you're a hooker. That's literally the word for word what a stereotype is. Like, if you ever Google, like, hooker, that's the fucking image that they'll use as a stereotype. Right? This is what people expect to look at, and there are people that are actually like that exist, are like that. I don't know why people are trying to convince me otherwise, where they're like, oh, they're not actually trying to hurt you, or like, these are people who are actually criminals or something. I'm like, who are you trying to make feel better here? You for being involved, or me for being the recipient of the crime? Because you're literally pissing me off. You're making me feel worse. That's what that means. You're making me feel worse because you're pissing me off because of the fact that you're refusing to admit that fact that this isn't okay. And you're implying that it's okay because it happened to me specifically, which is victim blaming. I'm like, why would I want to be near people who victim blame all the time? It's nauseating, it's a headache, and they just don't want to admit their involvement in any activities that were illegal that led to me being here. Their excuse is that it's your fault for not killing yourself sooner. Or it's your fault for being a good person. It's your fault for being born the wrong ethnicity. It's your fault for the fact that you're not upset at the stuff that I did. Like, it's just literally, that's what criminals say that's a criminal. That's literally word for word what a criminal is. Right? It's like, I did bad things, but why is it my fault? What do you mean I can't just do whatever I want and do all those illegal activities? I already did that. Why is that bad? What, like, you can't tell me what to do or how to live my life. That's a criminal. That's literally a criminal. Why is that a bad thing? Actually, I don't know. Many reasons. But I just want to be very clear on this. The reason why everyone hates them, these criminals, is because they're so stupid. Literally, like, how do you sit down and look at yourself in the mirror every day and be okay with the fact that you're ruining everything for everyone else just because you're unhappy with who you are and what you want to do in your life? Like, you just don't like yourself, so it's somebody else's fault and everyone else will feel just as miserable as you are. That makes no sense. Like, people are gonna feel miserable with themselves or their life just because you told them to, just because you're doing these things, because you're terrorizing them to the point where they actively now hate you. That's not gonna make them hate their life. Huh. Oh my god. I found a rat. But honestly, it's just like, okay, literally it makes no fucking sense what they're saying. This is my personal problem with these people existing. It's like, why would you do that? There's no different types of criminals. There's one type of criminal. They're the same in every country, and nobody wants them there. People call them trash. People call them garbage. They call them waste. They all operate the same way, and their responses are exactly the same. And regardless of what it is that they've done in their life and how it's affected them, does not matter. Because they're unhappy, so it's now their life goal to make everyone else unhappy, or anyone that they know personally as unhappy as they are. That's a criminal. They're incredibly stupid, they're very unattractive, and they need a lot of work done before they're even socially acceptable. Some people don't mind doing that kind of stuff. Like, that's why they put up all these schools and have all these public institutions and like made it possible for their parents or somebody to save up enough money to send them to through that educational system, at least through training, so they don't actually end up committing those crimes, right? Right? It doesn't work. Unfortunately, people have been trying to do this for years. It never works. It doesn't matter. Like, let's say they don't do that at that point. They'll always encounter a situation where they're compelled to do that because of the fact that they're criminals. That's just how they're made. It's waste. Waste means it's a byproduct of producing something in that society. There's different aspects to each criminal, like detailing, right? So like I found out that in Africa they're all like that, except all the criminals, the thing that you can tell that it's a criminal, they're homosexual. In Europe they're retarded, as in they're chronically disabled mentally. That's how you know it's waste. In Africa it's homosexuality. I don't know about, oh, it's what is it, like, it's misogyny and discrimination in East Asia. So those are trashy people in East Asia. Yeah, when they're discriminatory and or sexist and or misogynistic and or whatever, what have you, that's trash. It's literally trash. I don't know why anybody would want to be like that. Like, that shouldn't be your aspiration. That should be you trying to avoid people like that. Why are they kept alive? Because it's a byproduct of society. Byproduct of breeding, okay? People are trying to make sure that people are capable of breeding and we all, like, having the same type of thing, right? They're like, we want our baby to be the best baby, and we have enough resources to do so. And this is how we're all gonna plan on making enough babies so that future is guaranteed, such and such. It's intrinsic, right? Internally, it's compelling for people to go about and make more species of each other, aware of where they're at in life and their resource level. That's basically what that product is. Why do they turn out like that? Because there are people that still need to live there and are actively supporting something, some part of that economy that can be considered valuable or necessary or even wanted, right? And thus now that because of it, because there's still people and they still have that like need to procreate and socialize and all that kind of stuff, end up making babies even though they shouldn't be, right? And then that's the byproduct. That's the waste. It's literally like apparently a piece of shit is Middle Eastern trash. So they're like that, but they're really shitty people. They're like that, but they're homosexual. But they're like that, but they're really lazy. They're like that, but they're very ignorant. Right? Can you do anything with them? Look, if you actually manage to find somebody and they're criminal and they really like you, right? Like, you as a person, they will do things for you to maintain that friendship. For you specifically. Because they like you as a person and they see the value of having you around, because they're not all that stupid, I think. Some of them are. The European ones, they're all stupid. The white trash, yeah, they're really stupid. The white European criminals, that's what they make. The criminals are incredibly stupid, but easy to control. Very easy to control. Their motivations are very simple and very, very, like, geared towards, like, feelings and emotions. Right? So, like, even if they get upset, as long as you do something that suits them in some way, it's through something they like, then they will be able to at least respond via making sure that they're not as emotional as they were before. That's kind of how they're controlling it. But that's the gist of, like, breeding, I guess. Like, it's like family planning and society and sociology. Right? And it's just, I just don't like the fact that they exist. It means that, to me, I feel like that is an indicator that people aren't doing something right. If that makes sense. It looks like, not that it looks like, I feel like it means that they just don't understand that what they're doing is actively hurting other people, unaware that is actual, like, it could be prevented. Or that country as a whole has lost its diplomacy with some other important entity and thus has affected their citizens thusly. Which is a bad sign. That means it's degraded. Like, you've been degraded. So that's what that is. I don't... Ugh. So that's really all that is. I don't like it. I fucking hate it. What are we talking about? Why is this not charging? That is so annoying. Again, they don't understand this because they're slaves and prostitutes. Like, it doesn't matter the amount of education you give them, they're not gonna get the hang of it. Even if they can recognize it in a textbook, they don't understand what that means. It's not literal word for word. And there's more than one type of person that doesn't fit the exact stereotype of the textbook example. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, yeah, I know there's, it's like, they met one doctor, right? This is what the cops are like, because they're retarded. They'll be fine if they meet every single doctor in the world, and now they recognize that's every doctor that's ever existed, and that's what they look like, and now I can recognize it if I see them again. That's called being a retard. That's retard logic. Literally, those are retarded people. So with that, it's like, the problem is that no one has the time to sit you down and show you pictures of every single doctor in the entire world for you to be able to recognize when a person's a doctor or not. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I get that you met your family doctor. That guy's a doctor. But that guy, every other doctor in the world isn't going to look like that guy. They're not. They're not going to look like that guy. Like, it's impossible. Okay, there might be other people that look like that guy. They're not going to be doctors. And you can't get that confused just because they look alike. That's so stupid. Honestly, I'm like, that's fucking retarded. That's literally fucking retarded. I'm like, how are you still living right now? Like, how are you breathing every day? Do you have an oxygen mask plastered to your face day in, day out, but when you go home, so you don't have to worry about working your lungs because, like, your brain just doesn't function properly? What is that? It's so annoying, and it's just like, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable with the fact that you're stupid. That's another thing. I'm just like, that's how you know they're retarded. Stupid people, some of them are actually aware that they're stupid, and they actively do something about that. Right? That's called being smart. I know you know you're stupid, but there's stuff that you, like, it's like childproofing your home, okay? You're doing something about the fact that you have certain whatever, but that's what everyone does. Regardless of their intelligence level, regardless of their experience level, regardless of their talents and capabilities and skill set, everybody does it. Every functioning human being does this thing, where they have something to combat their thing that they're encountering that might cause them problems. Right? Like childproofing. They childproof, like, metaphorically speaking, like in an analogy thing. Okay, they childproof their life for themselves, so they, like, baby-proof it for themselves. That kind of stuff, and it's fine if you're doing that. But it shouldn't be like that consistently, you know what I mean? That means that you haven't changed or grown since that point in life. Like, you haven't, that's kind of retarded in and of itself. So you got to a place where you're comfortable and you didn't have to do much, and then now you're refusing to ever change or learn anything new, or experience anything new. That's kind of, like, I think that is mental retardation. Like, adamantly against it and then becoming violent when they are faced with that whole thing where they can't do that thing. Oh my god, it's almost 8. I mean, it is 8. It's 8:10. I'm just gonna go. My phone did not charge, which is really annoying. Yeah, they don't know how stupid they are, but once you recognize the stupidity of yourself, it's called enlightenment. You are able to become, you're on your path to being wise. Wise enough, smarten up a little bit, you know? Like, if you're the type of person to think that you already know somebody before you even ever get to know them, like, you see them once and you're like, I already know that person, Just consider yourself retarded and please seek help for your retardation.